Raise hand feature if you have a question. Doesn't look like Coach Hunter's on here today, so might have a different first person. Go ahead, Coach.
Coach Hunter's at the pool. Like, I wonder how many of these guys are at, like, have these fake backgrounds going. I've been guilty of that myself in Zoom. Thank y'all for getting on here today. Second full day practicing with the entire team. How we're going to operate. We operated this way Friday, today, and then Monday and Tuesday leading into the first day of class is we're practicing all together. Our initial meeting in the morning is Zoom. And then we get together in the IPF, and we have chairs that are spread out. We've got a big screen set up in there. And we spread them out 6 feet apart. And we're able to have team meetings, which the first one we've had since March 12th was yesterday. And then we bring them back in the afternoon, and we're still in split squads in the afternoon. Split squads is when we watch the video. And that's when we actually come in the building. The only time we come in the building is to watch the video from practice. And we still do that in our gold and blue split squads. And the reason behind that is we just don't want all in one position in a position meeting room inside right now. Anytime we're inside, we're wearing masks, but we're still going to separate. I don't think it makes sense for the first and second team people or two people at any position to necessarily be in the position meeting rooms together. For instance, 2 left tackles, you don't want them in the position meeting because if they go down, if they get the virus, then they're both out. So we keep those guys separate. Positive note to start is last 150 plus COVID tests we did this week have all been negative. So fired up about that. I think that says that our processes are working. By no means am I getting my pom-poms out and cheering, because I think it's the next 2 weekends are going to be critical. And that's what I told our players. And to me, everything in life is about sacrifice. You have to sacrifice things you want. And football has always been a sacrifice. To play football at this level, in the Power 5 levels, takes a huge amount of sacrifices. And now during a pandemic, it's even more so. And so we just talk about being a great teammate. And part of that being a great teammate during this time is, as Clay talks about, is avoiding those 3 C's. And so we've been talking about that a lot. But that's kind of where we're at, COVID related. First scrimmage today, first full tackling session today. We just put the ball down and played a lot. Conditioning wise, we're not where we need to be. Went approximately 40 plays with the 1s and the 2s and 20 with the 3s. Worked some situational situations also, 2-minute goal line, third downs, red zones. Without watching the film, but I stood behind it today. This is who I would consider had some of the top performances. I'll start with defense. X-Ray Lowe had a pick that ended a 2-minute in the game. I've been impressed with him. I think that he's shown improvement. He definitely has talent. He's gotten his weight up where it needs to be. He's always, for the last 2 years, really been one of our best special teams players and made plays on defense today. So excited about him. Akheem Mesidor continues to show that he's ready to go, and he will be in our rotation when we start off September 12th. Naeem Muhammad is a guy that's played some special teams here last year, had maybe the play of the day on a pick in the red zone. And then Torres Simmons had a sack today. I thought he was active, young guy. His best football is going to be down the road, but thought he showed out today. And then Dylan Tonkery. I talked about him a little bit in our last meeting we had on here, but he's fitting the runs better. He's more comfortable. I've even heard him talk a little bit more out on the field, which is a positive. Offensively, Leddie Brown was really good today. And he's a guy that I think for us to be one of the most improved teams in the country, he's got to be a guy that's consistent for us. Thought he was patient today. I thought he finished runs, made guys miss and broke tackles at the second and third levels, which has been a point of emphasis Chad Scott's had with him. Bryce Wheaton, I can't remember if we've had 9 or 10 days of practice. Forgive me, it's all running together. But he's had really good days except for one. And he's got talent. He's got the size. He's got the speed. He's just got to put it together. And he is he's a little bit further ahead than maybe I thought he would be, and he had some big plays today. Almost went for 100 yards. Reese Smith had his best day as a Mountaineer. Had 5 catches, I think, and was really productive. Several of those were third downs. And then Grayson was really, as a guy, I love the way he plays. He competes. He's one of our best perimeter blockers, and he's got a future here. Special teams, Evan Staley, outside of one day, has had a nice fall camp to this point. And then Bonamico is a guy that keeps showing up on special teams. And so those are those are some guys that performed well today in the stadium. And with that, I'll open up to questions. If Greg's not on here, then Grant, you pass it to the next guy.
All right, just a reminder to please use the raise hand feature.
Where's Creedy been? Creedy hasn't been coming to these money. He quit.
Herzl, can you hear us?
I can.
All right, here we go. First question, Bob Herzl.
Wow, how about that? God, I forget what I wanted to ask. To be honest with you, Coach, I wanted to know if this team has started showing a personality yet, and how can you tell what kind of personality a team's going to have, and how do you develop that?
Well, that's a really good question. And are you on Zoom or are you calling in?
I'm calling in, but
okay. Right.
you'd rather hear me than see me.
That's probably accurate. I will say that's probably accurate. I don't know if this team has developed a personality. Where we've got some guys that have played some football. We're relatively inexperienced. We're probably more of a coach-driven team than a player-driven team from a leadership standpoint at this point. I hope that changes, and I think the tide's starting to turn, but we're not completely there yet. What I hope our team is going to be is a team that plays with a chip on their shoulder and that really has something to prove. And if you look at where we've been picked preseason-wise, which I know everybody on here has seen that, is I always talk to our guys, you either prove them right or you prove them wrong. And it's no different with Darius. Darius, got on an All-American team yesterday, and you saw me. I tweeted at him. I said, hey, prove them right. Because if you get accolades, you got to prove those people right. And then if you're not picked where you want to be, you got to prove them wrong. So I hope our team is really hungry. I hope 2 weeks from now you ask me that, Bob, and I say, man, we're a hungry team that's playing with an edge. That's what I hope. We're not there yet. Part of that is we've only been together literally 2 days all together since March 12th. So I don't think we've had enough time to really develop an entire team.
Next question here from Nick Farrell. Nick, go ahead.
Coach, no positive test results since preseason camp began. How important has your support staff been, athletic trainers, medical staff, equipment staff, through this entire process? And then as a follow-up to that, as you advise your players to make smart decisions, is it possible that they can be seen as leaders on campus, making smart decisions, not just for the sake of football season, but for the safety of the campus community at large?
Yeah, we've had one positive. I think I get lost in all these updates. Seriously, I know that we release some from the athletic department, all that kind of stuff. I kind of get lost in them. We've had one positive since we started fall camp. I think it was maybe the day after our last release. So we've had one. Whenever they release that again, I'm sure it'll come out. But we've had, to be completely transparent, we've had one. Thankfully, it didn't knock out, I think, but 2 people. I think that was a little bit of that was, and I'll say this, the positive guys had a negative sense. So I'm not sure kind of where that stands. And that's one of these things during this pandemic. Had a positive test and 2 days later had a negative test, which that's the first time we've had that happen. So I'm not even sure how that goes. Some of that's, a little bit over my head. I'll say this, I think from what we're doing, even with that positive test, but how we've tried to do our workouts and how we've done our meetings and everything, just the limited number of people that were contact traced with that positive, I think speaks to our medical people, our training staff, and then what our players and our staff are doing as far as heeding those protocols and procedures we have in place. I hope our student athletes are leaders. I hope our football players are leaders. in a pandemic or out of pandemic. You know, I hope they're probably held to a higher standard, which is understandable. There's rewards that go with being a part of the team, being a part of a state university's football team. So I hope we're leaders, you know, even without a pandemic going on, but even more so maybe doing that and making good decisions. And I think if they make poor decisions, it'll be even exposed more so than in a normal situation.
Next question here from Keenan. Go ahead, bud.
Two here for you, Deal. First of all, how are things going with the offensive line? I know you guys are just starting to really get physical, but you know, how are things developing there? And secondly, you've talked about Bryce quite a bit, you know, since fall camp started. Did you see this coming, or has this kind of surprised you too? Because I know at times he dealt with consistency last year.
I think it's just growth by him. He was growing. I think that he handled the pandemic pretty well. He continued during OTA or during the workouts and then OTAs. He's got the skills. He's got the talent. I'm not sure the confidence was always there, but if you look back at last year, you know, he had the game winner against Kansas State, made a couple really nice plays in the I can't remember if it was a Texas Tech or Oklahoma State game. So you started seeing some signs, you started getting confident, and that's what's happened in this camp is he has made plays, and you can see him before your eyes gaining some confidence. And so I'm not totally surprised. I knew he was going to be a really good player here. I just didn't know exactly when it was going to happen. And he's not to that point yet. He's got to go out and do it on Saturdays in games. But it is, you know, he's shown up several practices. He showed up in the scrimmage today. And my belief is most people, it's not always 100% case, but most people that perform well in practice and perform well in scrimmages, usually that carries over to the game. And I expect that to be the case with him. So I'm not surprised. And no, I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. What was the second question? Offensive line. Yeah. Thanks. So we ran the ball better today. Now you're always, as a head coach is sitting back there watching, you're always wondering if that's quality offensive line play, quality running back play, or bad defense. And if you don't run the ball well, you're worried about it. Is it really good defense or is it bad offensive line, running back, tight end play? We did run the ball better today. I think the middle of our offensive line is getting better. They've been more consistent, and they should be. You know, Gmitter's played all last year. Chase has played for a couple years now. Mike Brown played a lot last year. So Bryson Mays has been a guy that's played a lot of football here in the last year. So we should continue to make improvements, and we should be better, and we have been. At tackle, John Hughes has had a nice week, which has been a positive. Brandon Yates, Jr., those guys, we got to get them to continue to come, Parker Moore. But I do think the offensive line is continuing to progress. By no means have we arrived, but we are getting better.
Next question here from Ryan Pritt. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Coach. We've talked a lot about quarterbacks, obviously. I think the common perception is that it's a two-horse race between Austin and Jarrett, but you've been pretty high on Garrett over the last couple of weeks. Is this a case where you're actually looking at three candidates, and if Garrett's not in that conversation, is there an opportunity for him to work into that conversation over the next couple of weeks, you think?
I think it's probably too early to say. I'll say this. I'm fired up about Garrett Green. I like the way he plays, like the way he carries himself. So, you can take those future bets. He's a guy you take the future bet on at some point. You know what I mean? Is his time right now? Probably not. But I like the way he plays. But as far as who's going to start the opener, it's a two-man race right now. Could he be a factor if he continues to grow? Yes. But I'm really fired up about him. I've known the kid for a long time. To see, the way he competes is special. His leadership capabilities are special. And to see his progression probably over the last 3 years as a quarterback, it's been fun to watch, and just how much upside he has.
Next question from Mike Kazaza.
Hey, Neal, what's going on?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I have two for you here. One is kind of just extending on the offensive line a little bit, but the offensive line, the defensive line, you have a number of either true freshmen or junior college players or redshirt freshmen who haven't played, maybe haven't found a home yet. Where are you beginning to figure out you have answers? And then separate from that, the ruling yesterday where everybody gets free year eligibility kind of swells your depth chart a little bit, and you can play guys who otherwise might normally keep on ice for a year. How does that change your thinking?
Well, let's talk about the second question first, and we'll come back. So I think a lot of credit needs to go to Shane Lyons. I was a big proponent of this as far as freezing eligibility. And the reason being was to just listen to the voice of our players. You know, most of our players' questions during the last several weeks of what was some unknowns where we really didn't know what our future looked like. We didn't have a schedule, where we're going to play, where we're not going to play. A lot of those questions about eligibility, and I communicated those with Shane. You know, there's a Big Ten player representation, I think, two from each team. I think a lot of those questions from the players were eligibility questions more so than health-related questions. And so I think Shane was critical through the oversight, through the NCAA committee that he's on, is getting it to the point where it's at. And I'm in favor. I think it's fair. I think it's great for the university to play. I think it's great for the student athlete to play. And now there's if they're comfortable with the health related risk associated to it with playing right now, then they don't have to worry about the eligibility piece. I think there's some roster things you'll have to figure out, some scholarship ramifications, things like that. But I think that's for another day. I think for right now, this is the right decision to allow guys to play with a free mind and not worry about, hey, is this going to be worth accounting for one of my four? Now they freeze eligibility and they can play and really play without concern over eligibility. So I'm in favor of that. I think the change for this football season, what it'll do is it makes more guys available for you, probably on special teams, and you're not worrying about, you know, is this one of the 4 games I'm going to play? Because that's a little bit of there's a lot of strategy, and we talked about this some last year. There's a lot of strategy in deciding when you're going to play your 4 games. And so, like, I'll give you an example. Sean Martin, who you all know, is a guy – he had a good day today. I should have probably listed him. He had a sack and really had a nice day. But he's a guy that if we had normal rules, probably would have redshirted, and we would have really been kind of choosy about where we were going to play him in his 4 games. Now he's a guy that we can play and bring him along, and by the end of the year will be a solid contributor for us, but we don't have to worry about that 4-play limit or a 4-game limit. So, and I think it'll really show up on special teams. Some of the young wideouts we have in our program that we'll be able to have more depth on special teams and playing those guys. So I think that those are benefits. As far as the O-line and the D-line go, is really the evaluations for them basically started yesterday. And they'll go from now till really a week from Tuesday. It's kind of how we'll go about really evaluating and try to establish a 2-deep. My estimation is there's going to be some young guys, some transfers, some junior college guys that will be in that 2-deep for sure.
So next question comes from Kevin Kendrick. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Coach. Greg's not playing hooky today. It's his daughter's birthday, so he's involved in that one.
It's definitely more important.
Yeah, he's not skipping out.
I'm looking at if you see me looking at my Apple Watch, it's because mine's playing right now. So I get it.
Gotcha. You mentioned several different situational things in scrimmage today. Any one of those types of things stand out to you as good, or on the flip side, something that you saw you really need more work on?
Yeah, red zone, I thought, and that's a huge area that we're focused on offense and defense, and we did a sudden change there, really simulating a turnover, sudden change, and defense really stepped up and won both of those. Held the ones to nothing, missed field goal, and then this 2s made a field goal. So really positive defensive win in there. And then in the game, the offensive ones versus defensive ones, We played a situation 2 minute where about a minute, 18 seconds ago, the offense had to go the length of the field to score, defense up by 7, and offense executed and scored a touchdown 3rd and 1 from the 1 with like 9 seconds to go. But then the defense came back and made a great play on a 2-point play. We went for 2 for a win, and defense made a great play. So those are some situation type things that we did that worked out well.
Next question here from Jared. Go ahead, Jared.
Hey, Coach. I was just curious. Obviously, no fans at the Eastern Kentucky home opener. What are your thoughts on, how you think the no spectators should be handled, and do you think it creates a competitive disadvantage by not having a uniform rule across conferences or the NCAA?
I think it's impossible to enact a uniform policy. I think it's all about that area where you're located. I'm disappointed we're not going to have fans. I'm probably more disappointed for our fans than I am our players. Our players will be fine. They'll get up. They're going to be excited to play. And would they like to play in front of the fans in a full stadium? Absolutely. But I really feel for our fans because they look forward to it. And we have one of the best fan bases in the entire country. So I really feel for our fans. But I understand the decision. I do. I'm hopeful that we can, by our second game, when we play Baylor here, I'm hopeful we can get fans. I don't know what the percentage looks like, but I'm hopeful that we can. I don't have any inside knowledge saying we will, but I'm hopeful. But I don't think there's a way to make it uniform. Honestly, I think it's all how the virus is going in that particular area. So whether we play on the at home or on the road, where they have fans or not, we got to get ready to play. It's one of those things we knew was going to be the case. We've been trying to. I think we talked about it last Saturday. We practiced today with no music or anything like that in the stadium. So it'll be the same for both of us. This is the way I talk about it. So have y'all been watching the NBA, NBA bubble? Some of the best athletes in the world, they don't have any problem competing at the elite level, with no fans. So if LeBron James can play in front of no fans, I think all the Mountaineers can line up and execute and be excited about playing.
All right, we got 2 more questions here, then we'll be done for today. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, hey, Coach. Just looking at the tight end numbers from last year, I think O'Loughlin had 6 catches. Do you aim to get more out of that position group this year, or do you just think maybe the way the Big 12 is going in offense, it's more around the perimeter guys?
I think you play to your strengths. So I think that if our tight ends continue to improve, then they can be weapons, but they got to continue to improve. I think Mike and TJ Banks both have really good ball skills. They've improved their route running. They both had some catches. Or TJ had a blister, so he didn't go as much. We kind of held him back today, but Mike had a couple catches. They've had more catches in fall camp than they did a year ago. So I think if they continue to play and play well, I think a big part of that is we got to be able to run the ball. If you can run the ball successfully with a tight end in the game, then you give them more opportunities in the play action game. And so I think that and they're a part of that. They're part of making our own. So I would like to be able to throw it to them more. That's our hope. But they've got to continue to grow and show they can get open and then make the plays they need to make.
All right, final question from Chris Anderson. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Coach. Last time I asked about the transfers and the late additions, you mentioned it was key to evening out the classes. Mm-hmm. How was the NCAA's ruling? Was that a curveball for you, or were you planning for it? And does this minimize how many players you take in that traditional high school sense for 2021?
It wasn't necessarily a curveball. I kind of felt the momentum maybe the last week, 10 days that it was going to come. I think we have to wait and see what the roster rulings are going to look like. What's the scholarship number going to look like? Your total scholarship number going to look like for 21? What's your total scholarship number going to look like for 22? Got to try to get a feel for these seniors, you don't want to do that right now, but you got to get a feel for the seniors that will want to come back or won't want to come back. And so then you kind of adjust, so I don't necessarily have a plan right now because I don't know what the exact rules are going to be. Once we get the rules and see what those limited scholarship numbers and limitations are going to be, then we'll make some decisions. But my best guess would be that the scholarship numbers are going to rise. And so, everybody that's committed to us right now, we'll find a way to make part of our roster. I mean, that's, we owe it to them for that. And I think we'll be able to sign a full class. That's my understanding right now, but obviously that could change. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all being on here. Y'all have a good weekend.